if you're anxious to start cruising again, then you are going to want to hear this information all about the new cruise health and safety procedures that a cruise line has just come out with recently. And it's going to give us a great starting point to know what things are going to be like when we get back to cruising again. Hi there, I'm Ilana from the website and blog Life Well Cruised, and today what I'm going to be talking about is the new cruise health guidelines. And of course, as we all know, things are going to be changing as cruises resume. And we have been wondering, as cruisers, what is going to happen? How are these cruise lines going to start? What is it going to look like on board? And we've been, of course, wondering about this. So finally, Princess Cruises has come out with these new cruise health guidelines very recently. And of course, we've also heard from a smaller line in the past, but this is the first of the major cruise lines to give us a bit of a glimpse as to what's really going to be happening on their cruise ships. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So before I get started, I just wanted to mention that if you do like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. At the same time, if you do like cruise content like this, so cruise information and tips, and of course cruise vlogs when we are cruising, and you can look back at some other videos and you can see some cruise vlogs that we've done, but please do consider subscribing to the channel. So let's go through the 9 health and safety protocols that are going to be happening on cruise ships when we start cruising again. And of course, just something to remember is that the situation is very fluid, so things may be changing, but right now this looks like where we are. And of course, it is a pretty good starting point. So the first thing that the cruise line points out to us is that the itinerary may be modified. So what they are looking at is they are monitoring the situation in the World Health. They're also monitoring the situation at different cruise ports. And something that they do point out in this document is that in the past, some cruise ships were actually turned away from ports, even if nobody on the cruise ship, if everybody was overall healthy and if there were no signs of that illness on the cruise ship, that cruise ships were turned away. They don't want that to happen. So they are going to be making itinerary changes just to make sure that they are able to get into cruise ports with cruise passengers. So that is the first thing. The second thing that we are going to see that is going to be changing as we board cruise ships is the travel restrictions. And of course, we were expecting this, but boarding procedures are going to be a little bit different. And in terms of travel restrictions, we are going to see this. So they've pointed out a couple of things. So the first thing that they pointed out is obviously anybody who has the virus, who has been in contact with somebody who's had the virus. And that is right now the regulation itself. And that is what will be going forward. As well, if anybody presents with flu-like symptoms with a fever. And something that I should mention is in the past, we had seen documentation that stated that those that were over 70, as well as those who had a severe chronic condition, would not be allowed boarding or would have to have a letter from their doctor that says that they're fit to travel. We actually don't see this information right now in this document. Actually, when I did write an article about this, somewhere around a week ago or so, there was a stipulation that if somebody had a severe chronic illness, they may be denied boarding. And they did ask people to contact Princess directly about their own situation, or their travel agent about their own situation. That is now actually omitted from the document. So I'm not sure if it'll be back in or why it was omitted, but it is not in the document now. So that is interesting. And that might be a sign of things changing. I am not really sure, but I did think that was important, and I wanted to mention that to you. Now, I have the document right in front of me, so I'm going to be looking ahead at the third thing that is going to be changing, and that is that there will be new and different health screenings at embarkation. Now, we've always had, when we board our cruises, we always have a health declaration form that we need to fill out and to sign. And usually it would ask us questions like if we've had, well, I guess if we have had any respiratory kind of illnesses, but as well kind of things like stomach ailments and things like this. So now it is going to be a much more thorough questionnaire. And the thing that they do point out in this case is that anybody who falsifies information, that there will be serious consequences. That can include being let off at the next cruise port, and it can also include legal consequences. So this is really going to be taken seriously. As well is there will be secondary medical screening. So if there is a reason to be screened by medical personnel, that will happen as well after somebody fills in that declaration. So that'll be at embarkation. Something also to note is that this applies to guests, but it also applies to crew as well. Now, number 4, we are looking at the sanitation at the cruise terminal and at embarkation, which is something really that I hadn't thought about before. And I'm sure that probably things were a little bit sanitized, but now they're going much further, and they're outlining this in this document. The cruise terminals will be sanitized and disinfected between when people disembark and when people are embarking. To go even a step further, for anybody that has transfers coming over or are taking a shuttle from the cruise line coming over from the airport or from the city center over to the cruise terminal, those buses, those shuttles will be sanitized as well. And before people are going to get on those transfers, those buses, those shuttles, they will be given hand sanitizer to sanitize as well. And of course, all through the terminal, it is pointed out that there will be sanitizer at a lot of the different points within the terminal. So that's really good news that they are taking the idea of the sanitation very seriously, but they're also communicating with us now about it, which I personally love. I like to hear the details of what they're doing. So I am really, really happy to hear this. So I will look. Oh, once we get on board, then we can also look forward to enhanced sanitation on board. So some of the things that they actually point out is that the cruise cabins, which were always kind of cleaned twice a day, but usually the morning was the cleaning, and in the evening, to my knowledge, that was the turn down and perhaps a lighter cleaning. They are pointing out that the cabin will be cleaned and disinfected twice a day, and that will include the bathrooms that will have a special focus and areas that are also touched a lot as well. Enhanced on board, we will also see a disinfection of areas that we normally probably didn't pay attention to. So it's great to kind of know. And these would be the lounge chairs on the open decks, the mini golf area, the slot machines at casinos. So they really point out all of the different areas, which is great to know. They will also be disinfecting on a more regular basis, much more often, areas that are touched a lot. So that will include handrails and elevator buttons and things like that. And of course, gym equipment, things like that. And I'm going to go on to the next point. And, something else when we are looking at the sanitation is that the bathrooms are going to be cleaned more often than they already are, the public bathrooms. But also something they point out is that the bathroom doors as well as the lounge doors will be left propped open so that we don't have people touching as we kind of go in and out. So I think that that's probably welcome for everybody. And yeah, I think that that's a lot of the information is really just that areas are going to be really sanitized, even chairs in the dining room, in the buffet, that kind of thing, the tables, really public areas where you have counters, just all of that being really disinfected. And of course, we're also going to be seeing hand sanitizer stations in the public areas in many more places around the cruise ship than we were used to seeing in the past. Number 5 is the dining room and the buffet areas. And this is probably not a surprise that we are going to be seeing pretty much not having self-serve buffets anymore and self-serve stations, or very minimally. So what Princess has said is that they will be going to a non-self-serve buffet where the crew, the staff is actually serving, passengers, and this includes even things like an ice cream station. However, they do point out that in some cases where it's not possible to have the crew serve guests, and I guess I was trying to think where that might be, but I do know in Princess buffets on some ships, they do have like a center aisle where sometimes it's like a little salad bar or something, and there are some areas that you sort of serve yourself, or at breakfast time you serve yourself your own danishes and things like that, and it's really set in the center of the buffet area where there's no room for the crew. So I'm thinking perhaps that's what they mean, but they are pointing out that they're going to have a crew monitoring that area, and they're going to be changing the large utensils frequently. So that's something that we are knowing about now. Number 6, no surprise, hand sanitizers, hand washing is really going to be reinforced on the cruise ships. So starting from when we are embarking on the cruise ship, using hand sanitizers, going into any of the dining areas, hand washing or sanitizers. And this is going to be monitored by the crew staff, and also passengers are going to have reminders. And the cruise line has also pointed out that this will be reminded to the passengers, but also the crew, but to the passengers in many ways on the cruise ship. So they don't specify all of the different ways, but they do say in many ways that this is going to be reminded. So perhaps there'll be signs up. Perhaps we'll see this as part of the muster drill. We don't know all of that information, but we definitely will have reminders about hand washing and hand sanitizers, and the crew is actually going to be there monitoring and really reminding and stressing this for passengers. And then I'm going to go on to the next one, and this I thought was really interesting. And number 7, it is talking about the crew and what their protocol will be. Because oftentimes I find that we as passengers don't hear very much about how things work for the crew. So I thought that this was great that they actually pointed out a few things. So they're going to be going through with the crew and really emphasizing with the crew, hand washing, no sort of, close hand contact between crew members, and as well, just different protocols about hand washing as well. And they also did point out that crew will be asked to report guests that may be displaying symptoms of illnesses. So this is all something as well, and really just reinforcing hygiene everywhere on the ship, but also in the crew area as well. Number 8, so something that's also really important is the medical care on board. So Princess is going to have testing and screening available on board, and guests and crew that are not feeling well are encouraged to go and seek medical care with a complimentary consultation. So this is something really good that will encourage people to go and seek help, to seek treatment, to seek advice, to find out how they are doing, and if they need any medical care, by having a free consultation. So this is really some good news. And number 9, finally, is the Cruise with Confidence program. Is just that Princess is continuing to have this, and some of the cruise lines are having their Cruise with Confidence type program, or sometimes it's under a bit of a different name, but basically this is a flexible cancellation policy. And what this means is that up until about 48 hours, in some cases 72 hours before the cruise, many major cruise lines are allowing people to cancel for whatever reason, but if they don't feel comfortable to go on their cruise, they're able to cancel for those reasons. And they're able to have a future cruise credit for the amount that they paid. So, which is really something good. And in some cases, it's through the summer, it's into July or August or even in September. That does vary by cruise line, but Princess Cruises does have this Cruise with Confidence program, and they are continuing this. And they are pointing out in their document that they are continuously working with experts, working with government organizations, working with really World Health authorities, working with travel industry partners to make sure that when they do sail, that they're sailing and that it's as safe as possible and that it is feasible. And well, basically they are doing everything they can, and this is how they are making these decisions. So it's actually a super interesting document. It's about 7 pages long. So this was really sort of a summing up of all of that. But personally, I'm really happy that cruise lines have started to communicate with us as to what are the plans, how are things going to work. Now, I don't know if you have any questions about this, some things that you'd like to know from the cruise line. Maybe leave that in the comments below, because that will be really interesting. We will, of course, see some updates, I am sure, from other cruise lines as well as from Princess in the coming days and weeks and even months ahead. So leave your comments. Let us know what you'd like to know about this, the questions that you have. I know that sometimes people have said they've wondered about if somebody's turned away at the cruise port and they cannot board because, well, they're just turned away, they were deemed not to be able to sail. What happens to the people that are sailing with them? Does everybody else get a refund? What happens to airfare that might have been paid to come to the cruise line? So I know that's one question that I've seen. I have also seen people wonder about that that stipulation that those over 70 needed a fit to travel letter. And so it would be good to know if that is still something that is valid. And I'm sure that we are going to see more information coming from the cruise lines and from Princess in particular in the coming little while. So thank you so much for watching. If you did like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. And of course, consider subscribing to the channel. Now, I am on Facebook and I am on Instagram, and I'd love to connect with you there. Thanks for watching.